All right, it's a pleasure to introduce one of our former speakers, and Dr. Alice Rose of Atlanta, Georgia. She was with us in years past on different subjects. Now she's having exciting results with a device that I want her to tell you about. So bring on and welcome Alice Rose, if you will, please.
Thanks, Dean. In 1979, I wrote my dissertation on the emotional causes of cancer. It was called Cancer, the Silent Scream, and I gave my first speech for Global Sciences back then. And this talk is about cancer, so I feel like I'm coming home in more ways than one. And since then, I've spent about 20 years as a clinical psychologist helping people heal through primal scream therapy, where people go into deep regressions through sobbing and even screaming. And while it cures many emotional disorders, it also causes physical and spiritual transformations at the same time. Spiritually, people become more loving, more open-hearted, and they feel more connected to God. Out of 5 metastatic cancer patients who did this therapy with me, all went into remission without a change in diet or physical lifestyle. And those that kept primaling on their own are still cancer-free today, and that's over 15 years later. But the problem is this work is very hard on the therapist. So I wanted to find an easier way to work with cancer patients and others with physical disorders. And all along, I've been interested in machines that heal. And I had heard about the Rife technology through Global Sciences, so I started a search for the right one. I had somebody build me a multi-wave oscillator, and I purchased other equipment, but I never felt physically comfortable using them. I'm very sensitive. So about 4 months ago, I was experiencing a deadly brain fog. I couldn't think, I couldn't remember anything for short-term memory, and I was afraid that I couldn't work anymore. So I started a search, and I located a BioRay, which is the Cadillac of the Rife technology. And I got one treatment. It was pleasant and comfortable, and in 20 minutes, the brain fog completely cleared. So the next day, I got one. That was enough for me. And I found out why it was so pleasant. While it uses radio waves, none of them reach the patient, just like Rife's original beam ray. Now, I know you all are an educated audience, and you probably know a whole lot about Rife, but I'll talk a little bit about Rife just in case there's some newcomers here. And I want to add some details for you old-timers, details you may not have. BioRay has over 500 original papers and articles about Rife, written by Rife and about him. And I've seen them personally. And in fact, just before I left, I got some new rates that nobody else has from a document that's in Rife's own handwriting. Royal Raymond Rife was a scientist and researcher who invented a fantastic microscope in the 20s and 30s. His final scope could magnify 60,000 times, and he could even see viruses, which was unheard of until the electron microscope was invented. And the electron microscope can see viruses, but unlike the Rife scope, it has to kill the organism to see it. Rife had the only scope that can see viruses alive, very important for what was to come. For every living microbe and organism he was working with, Rife was able to identify what he called its oscillating rate and what we would call its living frequency. And he thought that if he delivered its frequency to it, it would resonate to that frequency, get too much of it, and possibly die. This is similar to finding the resonant frequency of a glass and shattering it with sound. I have a tape of a paramecium being treated with a frequency that causes it to burst its cell membrane and die. And this research was done by Dallas Research Group, which was BioRay's founding research group. Would you play that for us?
This is a simple paramecium, commonly found in standing water after a rain or in most ponds and lakes. Magnification is at 100x. Notice the rupture point on the organism and immediate disintegration of the organism's entire structure.
Oh, lights down.
Please note the digital real-time readout in hours, minutes, and seconds at the lower right-hand corner of the screen. This will give you some idea as to how long it takes for an organism to disrupt. The spinning action is normal until the pulsations disrupt the body membrane, causing an instant venting of matter. Many people have heard of the medical technique of using ultrasonic waves to break kidney stones into pieces so that no operation is necessary to remove them. One of the best kept secrets, however, is that any particle can be selectively targeted and destroyed with pulsed modulation. Here again, the microbe is disrupted within a few seconds, followed by the spilling of internal matter. This process is similar to an earthquake shaking a building to rubble. You will note that the targeted organism is destroyed without affecting any of the surrounding untargeted material. In the 1920s and 1930s, Royal R. Rife, a scientist in San Diego, California, discovered and researched the methods by which bacteria, fungi, and viruses could be destroyed with waves that are harmless to the human body. The experiments shown here were conducted by the Dallas Rife Research Group on non-pathogenic microorganisms to demonstrate the validity of Rife's principles. Two paramecium are in close proximity to each other in this example. You will note that the lower paramecium dissolves first under the influence of the modulated pulsations. The second paramecium follows suit shortly. Numerous studies by the Dallas Rife Research Group have shown that all targeted microorganisms on a single test slide disintegrate when exposed to specific pulsed modulations, leaving the test slide completely clear of the targeted species without disrupting any untargeted species.
It's done. Rife developed the beam ray to destroy organisms in a similar manner, and he spent years determining the resonant frequencies of many microbes and viruses, including polio, tuberculosis, typhoid, leprosy, many others. Early on, he identified two forms associated with cancers, a bacteria and a fungal form. And for you old-timers, the fungus looked like tiny mushrooms or tiny orchids. And fungus has long been associated with cancer, and more about this later. He also saw that many organisms had a color, something you could never see with an electron microscope, and could this be the basis of color therapy for cancer and other diseases? Each color has a frequency. If you want to know, the color of all cancers is red-purple, according to Rife. He used the beam ray to kill the bacterial forms and the fungal forms, But still the rats that he was testing died anyway, until finally he isolated a viral form of cancer, much like Virginia Livingston's progenitor cryptocytes. And when he injected it into the rats, they died. The medical world then was all astir with his findings. He was connected one time with the Mayo Clinic, Northwestern University Medical School, and University of Southern California. He put the beam ray in many clinics for use on humans. And in one study documented by the University of California, 16 out of 16 cancer patients who were terminal at the time of treatment experienced full recovery in less than 4 months. And if you're interested in his story, the book, The Cancer Cure That Worked by Barry Limes, I have that over at my table. And there's also a great article that I have that's very inexpensive, just $3, written by Christopher Bird, and that will tell you a lot about it. He was discredited by the AMA at that time because someone who had befriended him, Fishbein, wanted to buy into his technology, and he turned him down. He said he wanted it to be for the common man and to be cheap. And Fishbein basically just about ran him out of town. His laboratory was confiscated. A lot was lost, but some things are still left. Thank goodness. We have the rates and we have the technology. As I said, BioRay is the Cadillac of Rife machines. It emits no radio waves, and radio waves have been shown to cause cancer and not necessarily stop it. The tube is not ignited by mercury. It has to be built in Germany. It's a specially designed tube. It's a light machine. I have it back there, and everyone's welcome to come by and get a free treatment and experience it. Mercury puts out a waveform that's not good for the body. Would you show that picture of the Ebola? BioRay is, in the future, going to reconstruct the Rife microscope. And if we can get that back, think of the possibilities. We could attack the Ebola virus or any type of bioterrorism. And if you had a machine and something like that happened to us, we'd get you the rates as soon as we had them. My programs are updated almost every couple of, well, I've had an update, only had it 3 months. I've already had one update already, so. And again, you can program the machine. That's the most important difference between this and others. We have built-in programs for cancer, Lyme's disease, lupus, worms, and there's other programs for herpes and such, and other viruses. I've had the BioRay for 3 months, and I don't treat people for any diseases. Legally, I can treat people for depression and anxiety. And by the way, it does work for depression, and the person experiences a relief in depression after the first 20 minutes of treatment. And I've seen this happen over and over again. Anyway, again, I can only legally treat for depression and anxiety. And the people that I have treated for those two things also happen to have ovarian cancer, stage 4, melanoma, stage 4, rheumatoid arthritis, Lyme's disease. I've helped someone with depression who had herpes zoster, and many people have had severe physical pain from many different sources. Injury, cancer, herpes, ulcers. And here are some of my clinical observations for all patients across the board. At the first treatment, if there's a virus going on as well as the depression and cancer going on, there is a stench that comes off of the patient immediately when you turn the machine on. My interpretation, a stench, a smell, everyone in the room can smell it. I've had relatives in there and they can smell it, everyone can sense it. My sense is that it's a die-off. It's a type of almost instant detoxifying that's happening. Pain is greatly reduced in almost anybody. And what I do with people is I say to them, what is your pain level now before we start on a scale of 1 to 10? They'll say 10, 8, something like that. I had one person with shingles. She was in terrible pain. For 3 months, she'd been in bed with it. And I asked her her pain level. She said 10. I turned it on, and I said, well, how do you feel now? She said, oh, I feel better. And I said, well, what's your pain level now? She said 2. And everybody looked at each other, her relatives, we all just went, I said, well, let me turn it on again. So I did one more, this is 15 minutes. And I said, what is it now? She said, 0. Now, that's not going to stop it completely. You need some repeating, more treatments than a 30-minute treatment. They need to come back more times. Energy is greatly improved. The people with cancer, the depressives who had cancer, got out of bed within a couple of days. Their energy was so good. Outlook is improved. That's the mental change that I've noticed. And to a person, they would all come in with an ashen face. Cancer patients have a lot of just paleness and shock on their faces. The paleness is gone. And sometimes it was only gone for the duration of the treatment. You could see it right away. Their face would be flush. Color comes back. But for one of them, it's permanent now. She looks like she has a tan, even if she's not getting treated at the moment. I've noticed increased mental clarity, and they've reported, not just me, but memory returning. And edema is greatly reduced by using this. All the swellings have gone down tremendously. We have a comprehensive program in BioRay, of course, using some of the things you all already know a lot about. There's detoxification with colonics and coffee enemas, nutrition, of course, organic foods, and then one very important part of the program is pH regulation, and we can do that with certain substances. It's real easy to do. This is easy to manage and do yourself if you decide to get one and work with people. The pH balance is very easy, and operating of the machine is very, very simple. You can be taught in about 15 minutes. I'd like to give you some case histories. One of them was a 57-year-old person with melanoma, terminal, been through chemo, the whole 9 yards, stage 4. She had nothing else to do. She had a huge tumor on her neck that was choking her. I was really worried about that one. We could have lost her any minute. On the left side, that was on the right, on the left there was a small one. Her leg it was straight up and down, her left leg. No ankle. This is from edema, from the fluids draining off from all the cancers. They were just going into her left leg. She had to wear slippers, couldn't wear shoes. She walked with a shuffling gait, like a little old lady, just shuffling along. I hypothesized she probably had a tumor at the back of her, down around here, where it affected her walking. And she was vomiting at every single meal for 2 months. And she goes to bed at 3 p.m. She went to bed at 3 p.m. every day and stayed all night. She only ate sugar. She had no desire for real food. And this is the connection with fungus and cancer. Fungus demands sugar to feed it and to ferment, and that's what she was doing. Okay, 4th day, no vomiting, not sick in the afternoon, wants a real meal 2 times a day now. 5th day, she walked uphill without the cane. 6th, she's not eating any sugar, and the left front lump is gone. The left lump here was gone. You couldn't palpate it, and no trouble swallowing. 6th day, she walked downhill. 10th day, walking with the normal gait, she threw her cane away. I greet her at the door and I'd say, "Where's your cane?" She said, "I left it in the car." People were driving her the first day of treatment. She was driving herself after 3 days. 18th day, legs still swollen, and a doctor told her that she was going to die. She went back to her, and it just blew everything. It was terrible. She had a terrible weekend. I decided to double treatments. We were down to, there's a whole protocol, and I'll tell you about this at the booth if you want to know. I decided I better double the treatments now. On the 19th day, we doubled them that day, the day before. The leg was down by 70%. It was like someone stuck a pin in it and just, it was amazing. She wore shoes for the first time in months. I programmed some additional programs for melanoma, and she would feel it in her lips, her chest, her side, and her belly. And she said it felt like it was kicking like a baby when the machine was on. Now, on the 23rd day, the right tumor, which was the scariest one, was not visible unless she craned her neck like this. Then you could see what was left of it. As I said, we have a whole program for people. She did take a turn for the worse. but she was not compliant on several of the things on the program. She kept smoking. She wouldn't eat organic foods. I could not get her to do a colonic, which was really scaring me because there's a die-off of all the stuff. You've got to clean that out. And I turned her away at the door. It took her an hour to get to my place because she hadn't done the colonic yet. And the pH regulation wasn't in place. I want to be totally honest with with case histories, and I'm not going to get up here and say this is a cure. I want you to know exactly what happened. So she did take a turn for the worse, and she quit the treatment. The ovarian was stage 4 as well. Ovarian is sort of asymptomatic. You don't get many symptoms with it. Just the CA-125 is up, except she had sleeplessness, sugar cravings. She did have a small tumor under her left arm. She'd had surgery, so there were no tumors we could palpate. Daily headaches, mental dullness, low energy, and no appetite. On the 3rd day, energy back. 6th day, sleeping without a pill for the first time in months. 6th day, sweet tooth completely gone, and she'd never eaten a bite of sugar since. It's repulsive to her. Appetite back. 7th day, backache gone except when sitting. 9th, headaches gone. 10th, mental acuity back. 11th, she had a colonic, and she was on the table for 1 hour, and the lady said, "Why don't you just stay another hour? I think something's there." They heard a pop, and this yellow stuff started draining. It drained for a solid hour. She had 3 more movements when she got home, more yellow, just pouring out of her. One of my other patients had green stuff pouring out of the colon, just pouring with the colonics. So 44th day, her sex life was back. And when I wrote my dissertation, I ran across a lot of research that said one of the signs of cancer is you lose sex drive. And I know someone else who's got over the cancer, but they never got their sex life back. So we really celebrated that. On the 45th day, she ate more food than she's eaten in a year. She had 2 breakfasts. Her friends were remarked, she's a skinny little thing. Her friends were freaking out, but we were happy. And the lump in the left arm is smaller. And she's the one with the color. She looks like she almost has a suntan. This patient is completely compliant. She does everything that's needed on the program. Would you all show that picture of Hospital Santa Monica? When I was down at BioRay's office, I heard a phone call come in from Hospital Santa Monica in Tijuana. They're using the BioRay. They're so thrilled with it. They weren't compliant with the pH balance, and once they got that in place, they're so thrilled that now they're going to treat people for 10 days and send them home with a BioRay. Okay. Can you see that picture? Is it shown? Okay. The other person I've treated that was a great case, you heard the herpes case. That one was amazing to me. And I have the strongest feeling about using this for viruses. I went to Venezuela for the weekend and came back with something that seemed horrible, some colon thing I had. And I thought, oh, God, I'm going to have to take antibiotics. I don't want to. And David said, why don't you just lie down in front of the BioRay? I did. The stench came off of my body. And the next day, no problem. It was totally gone. Whatever I had, it knocked it out. The arthritic patient, I've designed a special program for him. He was in terrible pain. His pain went down to a 2 in the first session. We did rapid sessions twice a week. He's now down to every 10 days. He had pain at a level of 10. He was in bed and couldn't work. We wait 10 days because it's cheaper for him. And it goes up to about a 4. Then he gets his treatment into 0. And then we wait till it comes up again. Maybe it'll be 15 days soon. He's had about 6 treatments. And I've got a friend with Lyme's, and there's other case histories I can tell you about if you come back to my table and talk to me about it some. I've got tapes and articles and books and a frequency oil developed by a doctor. We're working with frequencies in town, who used this oil and checked it out with his dark field microscope. He put it on the patient before and after, and the blood looked better in the after. And it's really inexpensive stuff that I've got there. I also have a Skilling's machine that I'm not using now since I'm using the BioRay, and I'll sell that to you at half price if you want one. They're excellent. Are there any questions? That's it. Any questions about it? It's very expensive. It's $6,000. But it has a computer attached to it. Again, you can program it, and a lot of people are getting together with their neighbors. If they're not planning to put it in a clinic, they get together with people, everybody shares. You can have a chat room. 10 people can be treated at the same time. It's real easy. You can treat easily 10. You can have a little room of people all sitting around and just operate it. So people have done that with it. Anything else? Any other questions? Oh, we've been treating here, by the way, and people can, oh, I'm sorry. You can come by for a treatment to see what it feels like. Now, if you get a treatment, drink water. You have to drink 4 ounces of water every hour, because there could be a die-off, and then you might get sick if you don't drink the water. Question? I couldn't hear. 42, I believe. I'm right in the middle there.
Is it working?
Is it working?
Okay. In your example of where you treated yourself for something in the colon, if you didn't know what it was, how did you know what frequency to use?
That's a very good question. We have 2 main treatment programs that have about 8 frequencies in them, and they're called Gen 1 and Gen 2, and they're the workhorses of this system. You use it for just about anything. I use that with the arthritic patient besides one that I've designed for him. I always give him Gen 1 and Gen 2, and for me, that's what worked.
And have you had any problems with the authorities, or, I mean, this, or the people that produce this machine? How are they legally? I mean, I've heard of other types of machines that seem to be blackballed.
Yes.
How is it that this one is available?
Basically, I can say I treat because of my license. I can treat depression and anxiety. I'm always treating that. If you don't have a license for that, you can always treat yourself, and that's legal. And someone just happens to be sitting there with you while you're treating yourself. Okay? So that's one way to handle it.
They don't have any problem, though, manufacturing the
Because
machines.
none of us use the word treatment. I'm one of the only ones in the program that can even say that word. So, okay, that's it.
Okay. All right,
Thanks, y'all.
Alice is available. And I know we're trying to squeeze things together rapidly here, and I hope Keith Edwards is in the room, because if he isn't, we're going to get out early. But Alice will offer a workshop tomorrow morning, and if you want to learn more about it, of course, you can speak to her tonight as well, because when we break tonight, then everything in the exhibit area will be open and free to the public, as it will be by tomorrow. There will be all exhibits are to be out of this room by 5 o'clock tomorrow, but they can be open all day tomorrow as the workshops are going on. Now, evidently Keith Edwards is not in the room. What? Oh, okay. Start the clock. 'Cause all right. He has some devices also that we learned about when after the program was printed. So I want him to give you as much time as he's got. Okay. All right. Here he is. Okay, Keith. He was.
Okay. My name is Keith Edwards. Well, it's been a wonderful family gathering this weekend. It's been interesting when it first began. It was as if one had to learn about the nature of reality, and that there's all sorts of little realities out there, and we have to kind of honor those differences and the diversity and the glory of that diversity. Linda and I are fortunate because we can go back to our wonderful little nest in Sedona, Arizona, where we can live the best of both worlds. The deep immersion into the living library of nature and the promoting of advanced vibrational energy technologies with the internet and mail order responses. Just as some background here, my partner of 15 years, Linda Hannapil, has been involved in medical research for about 15 years at the University of Arizona Medical Center, the home of Andrew Weil and the latest integrative medicine programs. I believe she set the consciousness framework back there in the late 60s with her work as a research assistant in neurological pathology, basically studying disease for 18 years. And then, because of transcendental meditation, studying wellness for the following 18 years. She's been a student of Ayurveda for over 15 years, and she is the most eclectic, holistic, integrative practitioner that I've ever met. I have learned much from her. I've been around her for 15 years. From her and from people such as Bob Beck and Ed Skilling, taking apart technologies, taking a look at them, learning how they work, and finding a way of being able to explain to people on lay terms, as best as I can, how they work. And in other words, we put together full programs, nutritional support programs with the wide variety of our technologies that we offer, but we also help them understand how they work and how they might be best suited for their particular use. And again, a full nutritional program that can really amplify the value of the technologies. And we're about demystifying the complexity of perfect health, not only with nutrition, vibrational energy nutrition and electromedicine, but also with the simple understanding that it's a time to return to simplicity. We've made this all too complex here. It's very, very simple. There are 4, maybe even just 3 core supplements that everybody in the world should be taking because they're food items: MSM, trace mineral drops, full spectrum plant-sourced enzymes, soil-based organisms, etc. So those are our support products that go along with our vibrational energy technologies. I've been involved in geophysical and geological mineral exploration and geotechnical engineering before I met Linda, and overlapping into the development of this business. And I'm also a shamanic astrologer, which is about core valued life purpose, comprehensive astrology. We offer, like I said, a wide variety of products, everything from the ultra photon sound beam 8 now, which is the advanced version beyond Ed Skilling's photon sound beam 3. We've been involved and been very intimate with Rife Technology for about 13 years now. We met John Crane in 1986 in San Diego, where we lived, and we ran across Ed Skilling in the late 80s, promoting his sound probe, which was a radio wave carrier of universal Rife frequencies automatically sequencing. And then eventually Ed came out with his inert gas sound probe, which we named the photon sound beam. Eventually we departed from Ed for many reasons, which we can discuss elsewhere, and evolved the technology with our current research and development engineer, who is with us and will be at the workshop following dinner this evening. Everything I'm saying, from the ultra photon sound beam 8 to the ATP inductor, which is also, we call it the photonic intracell regenerator for ATP induction intracellularly, to a smaller version of this called the Blue Starfire, to the Gem Fire, which uses crystals of emerald and ruby and various selections of radio frequencies that can be applied to each one of those gems, to Claris environmental systems for protecting against electromagnetic pollution, to the Atlantis medallion, which is a radionically sourced ELF, EMF, and HARP protected device. A Feng Shui meditation mat, which is permanently infused with homeopathic frequencies, a beautiful cloth with a mandala on it, etc. And of course, the 8000 electromedical series, which includes combination parasite zapper by Hulda Clark with a colloidal silver maker, as well as the 3-in-1 vitalizer, which is a combination of Bob Beck's blood purifier, magnetic pulse generator, and colloidal silver maker. So these are just about 20% of the machines we offer. Just wanted to put them out real quickly. Let me just show you the ultra photon sound beam 8. It's a name of superlatives because the the other name is still out there. This has we've added frequency control. In other words, you've got a selection of 7 different universal right frequencies to choose from. These are the mid-audio range frequencies that are more bioavailable than let's say, a radio frequency containing a lot of harmonics. If you deliver the body with that it's used to receiving in those narrow slits of frequency of sound and light, then it is more responsive in terms of the harmonic information. It also has a pulse rate control and so forth. And most of the recent improvements we've done is to add an external power supply regulator that allows one to only put in 12 volt into the back of the machine so that the electromagnetic pollution of the 110 or 220 doesn't interfere from the intelligence of the circuitry. We've done a lot to shield the electronics, and most importantly, in the RF sound probe, we've miniaturized it in both in size and added 2 radio wave crystal oscillators that are in phi ratio. They're basically 2 radio wave transmission transmitters that are in phi ratio to one another, so that the harmonics of the carrier wave are there as well as the harmonics of the sound that it's carrying. The idea is that if you complex waveforms into full richness, then you're going to be getting much more faster results. The intent behind all of our technologies, let me refer to my program here, excuse me, is to really depart from allopathic approaches to technologies. It's more than the use of electromedical technologies, it's the consciousness behind the technologies. The allopathic model is more of a masculine principled approach that forces, pushes, and changes, whereas the nutritive or nourishing model of health is one that is more of a feminine approach, which is about allowing, holding, and sustaining. And in our opinion, the nourishment model of health is that's going to carry us well into the future amidst this crash of the ages that we have been well versed at this weekend. It is the nourishing of the body that it will make the difference. Because if our bodies truly trust the intelligence, the consciousness that occupies it, then anything can be achieved, truly anything. But do we really value this most precious piece of real estate, our human body, enough so that we constantly and regularly are nourishing it in a way that our consciousness is fully being metabolized into the physiology? It is about metabolizing consciousness. It is about bringing the highest value of who we are into form. That's why we're here. This is about gathering experience. This is about bringing the fullness of who we are down to the physical level. We have lived a life in a world so much filled with suffering and chaos that we haven't a clue about what the frequency of pleasure is all about. And I'm sure that we will be discovering that far into the future. The 2 paradigms of technology, externalized, and the internal technology of the human physiology and the living library of nature will be the 2 choices that we'll be facing in the future. We've gotten a lot of very powerful feedback from our technologies. I'd like to say that it's time for us to recognize that, well, what I'd like to say is that we really acknowledge the elders of the century who have presented and brought forth electromedicine, Makovsky, Rife, Abrams, Tesla. And it would be very important for us to also acknowledge the more recent pioneers, Ed Skilling and Bob Beck as well. It is also time for the elder to acknowledge the new and the creative that is emerging on the block. In understanding allopathic approaches to health, it's almost like imagining the fact that the pathogen is the shadow, but the shadow is what we're meant to own, not kill. If that were the case, then we could just assume that if it were appropriate, that if we could kill every bit of the members of the shadow government and of the elite governmental leaders that run the world, or the cabal of 5 or 6 trans-dimensional time-traveling wizards that run the planet, if we could just kill them all at once, then maybe that would be the solution. But we know that, I'm sure all of us know that that's not the solution. Nor is the solution simply killing the pathogen. This is because the problem isn't the pathogen. The pathogens are there because we have a toxic body. And why is it toxic? Because of diet, lifestyle, in a world that's filled with toxins on all levels: consciousness, emotional, physiological, mental, and just the blockages of our own relationship to life, the limitations, etc. The photon sound beam, the ultraphoton sound beam, brings forth the concept of breaking down the barrier issues, of devitalizing the pathogens and reestablishing the energy state and frequency of each cell in the body. There is a frequency within every aspect, an organ, the cell, everything. And the sound is the structural component of the electromagnetic spectrum. So reestablishing the frequency of every cell in the body is inherent in reestablishing the vitality and health of the cell. At the same time, reestablishing the electrical energy state of the cell by simply providing a flow of biological microamperage current, the kind of electricity we're familiar with electric shocks, and we shock one another with. That's 2,000 volts of electrical delivery when we shock one another. I mean, that sounds phenomenal, but that's at 1/1,000,000th of an amp, or in that range. And so the intent with electrical energy is that you, as opposed to tens units and many other types of devices, that you lower the speed of the electricity, the way that the electricity travels, and take it away from the realm of like a laser beam to the realm of a plasma type of electrical energy that the body's already made of. So you're filling the body up with life force energy. You're filling the body up with the electrical characteristics that it's already made up of. But most importantly, you're detoxing the body, because if all you do is kill the pathogens, the detox burden is immense. So to provide a technology that does not just simply deliver frequency information, but also delivers an electrical energy along with it to help detox the body, is the answer to what we would call full frequency technology. There are testimonials and feedback clinically and personally from the use of the technologies is widespread and full, and I have a full list of testimonials back there. They're quite phenomenal. They're in days and weeks type of successes. Pain is very, very common, and the relief from pain is very, very common, and the relief from, I'm not going to go any further, just to say that from everything from A to Z has been successfully treated with the technology. The approach of a nourishing form of nutritional vibrational energy kind of is like what you would do if you wanted to feed the body with nourishing food. And we can talk about this more in our workshop or after this talk at the dinner time. But it's like there's three qualities of wholeness, freshness, and naturalness. Wholeness would be a full delivery of a frequency simultaneously, so that the body's cells can choose or be resonant into the frequency that they have. The other aspect would be naturalness, which would be the microcurrent that I've already established, the natural quality of electricity. And finally, it would be the freshness. We could probably call freshness the pulsation of energy, so that the body doesn't ignore the information after a while. Everything in life is polarity and pulsation and on and off, and if one delivers simply a constant, steady stream of information, then the body tends to ignore the information. Thank God, because otherwise these lights would have driven us all nuts by now. It's a quality of the body to maintain homeostasis, but it's also a factor that must be considered in any technology, any instrument, that there must be pulsation, and variable pulsation even adds to the minimization of the accommodation factor. Make sure I'm missing something here. Oh, and by the way, just as a footnote here, if anybody, I know there's a lot of people that have already purchased a previous model of the photon sound beam, and we're offering a special trade-in price if you want to talk to us back at the tables there next to where the massage table was, over at 49 and 48 or whatever the table numbers were. I would like to, in the brief time I have remaining, I've talked about the ultraphoton sound beam, and I'd like to discuss, well, let me just say real briefly here that we're going to be, the next step in our evolution of technologies is waveform technology. We're going to be focusing on having a sound port within the technology within a year or two in the distance, where one will be able to put in your voice recording of monks, dolphins, whales, whatever, right into the machine, so that the waveform, the complex waveform, and the frequency information will come right through the electrodes. And also more of an emphasis on phi ratio and sacred geometry, as we've already done a lot of work into putting this machine. The electrodes, by the way, we've added all three gases of argon, xenon, and krypton, and those are the inert gases that are found everywhere in nature that when used inside the electrode, provide a media to dispense the gentle electrical energy, a media to dispense it. So you create an electrical field. These can be used at distance from the body or directly on the skin. And one of the major additions we've done to the ultraphoton sound beam 8 is that we've added an RF carrier push. In other words, the glass electrodes have an RF enhancer or a broadcast component where the electrodes can be used at distance. It's a broadband radio wave push from 4,000 to 1,000,000 hertz, as opposed to the common Jim Bear type machines, the intense broadcasters that use radio wave to push the electricity through the air. Radio waves are necessary to carry any information through the air, and therefore it's important to make sure that you always have the proper amount of wattage to be able to carry whatever distance is being involved in carrying the information. What this provides is a combination of radio wave carrying the sounds, at the same time a microcurrent to nourish the body, detoxify the body, reestablish cellular resonance and energy states in the body to break down lumps, clumps, clots, etc. Very, very quickly. I've seen a blood clot disassociate under the microscope in less than 10 minutes with an electrode put next to it, where the platelet by platelet, there's a disassociation, and finally one was able to see the lymph channel flowing into the artery. It's just most of this technology is very simple. It's not complex. It really is not. It's just a matter of the person who builds it knows the value of what we would call parabiophysics, or biophysics, the understanding of what is the new knowledge and understanding of cellular resonance and frequency information that's nourishing for the body. The ATP inductor, which I've been using up here so that I can remain some kind of coherence, because it's a very powerful frequency broadcaster, is a very, very specialized technology created by Sky David, who built upon the concepts of Gilbert Ling in the 1950s, who dismantled the osmotic pump theory that said that, well, you've got a cell here, and you've got potassium, you've got sodium, and the pressure is maintained because of those particular elements that are existing. Well, it's kind of like a very mechanical model. The real model that Gilbert Ling talked about and that Sky David amplified was one that says that the ATP molecule, when increased in reservoir content inside the mitochondria of the cell, is like a thermometer. And when in high quantity or even in low quantity, its job is to broadcast a powerful electromagnetic organizing field that organizes cellular constituents into their proper arrangements, the potassiums, the salts, the water. It's a high state of organization and low entropy, and actually advancing cellular genetics by activating dormant DNA and advancing the immune system by the enhancement of the B and T lymphocyte production within the bone marrow itself. When one has a very basic level of ATP, like most of us have, it's survival level. And when moderate and higher amounts of ATP are present in the body, things at that level of ATP in the body that are normally damaging can be enhancing and evolutionary, such as ultraviolet light, for example. At medium to high levels of ATP in the body, ultraviolet light becomes evolutionary. In fact, everything's evolutionary, even the viruses. They're intelligent, sentient beings whose job is to clean up the mess and progress genetic evolution, because there's stasis and stagnation in a portion of our body, because our consciousness or our mental emotional factor that's related to that part of the body has dulled the energy in that area. Hence, the pathogens come in there to clean up the biochemical mess that would have otherwise have killed us much quicker. So we need to be friends with these entities and understand that when you aggress a virus, they'll stick in longer, they'll hang on longer. I'm not saying that it's not possible to devitalize and kill pathogens and that that's valuable, but what I am saying that there's a far more long-range and full-spectrum approach to the use of electromedicine. What I'd like to do in the close is to provide an opportunity for us to come together. In this nature, I'd like to just say that that I'd like to come together as a loving collective and go to that place within and give thanks to Linda wrote this up, to give thanks to the Mother Earth for giving us the opportunity to be the magnificent human beings that we are, and call upon the unified field of love with the mantra, all the love that I am is fully present now. So if we could just close our eyes for a moment and just, in the time that remains, remember that, put our attention on all the love that I am is fully present now. Thank you for that. And before we go, I'd like to close with one statement. It just is simply an expression of what I believe nature to be. It is the natural tendency of life to grow and express its full potential. It is inherent within the evolutionary processes. Guided by an amazing innate intelligence within our bodies can achieve anything. We may bandage a wound, but it's the body's intelligence that magically orchestrates thousands of simultaneous processes with its infinite correlative abilities. It is time to honor our bodies. It is the solution for everything that has been discussed this weekend, because when we honor our bodies and bring full consciousness into it, we broadcast the frequency of love, and that shall maintain the world we wish to choose far into the future. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Keith. Here endeth the regular program of the speaker's agenda for Denver 99. If you will, well, you're welcome, and we appreciate everybody who attended. The one thing I would ask you now, if you're going to attend a workshop and have not yet made your decision about tonight, please do so as quickly as you leave the room, so we'll know what rooms to be assigned. And I would like to ask one other question, sort of take a poll of the delegation. How many of you would like to go to Florida, say next late January or February, for another conference? Raise your hand. How many of you would go if the rooms were $99 a night? That's considered to be a convention special in a lot of towns, in the major towns, Orlando, Tampa, and Daytona, in the wintertime. This is one of the problems with putting together a conference in Florida in the wintertime when everybody else wants to be there too. The regular rooms are not, it's not unusual for them to be at $120 a night, and those of you who travel quite a lot know that. Of course, you can always get cheaper rooms, but then you can't get a room in a hotel with facilities like this. It's easy to get cheaper rooms, $40, $50 a night, but then you got to go rent a hall for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a night. $2,000 a night is, considered a sort of a minimum if you're renting a hall like this per day, and it might be $3,000 or $4,000. If you've ever dealt with something like this, you know that. If not, you might be kind of shocked as to what they think it's worth, and of course it's a competition, it's a law of supply and demand. What happens with most conferences and conventions is that the bills are paid by large corporations, so the people who attend don't really care what it costs, because they're there on company expense account. Therefore, you will see an awful lot of conferences and conventions, because trade shows are becoming a very, very big thing, and have been. They've come on in the last, particularly 10 years, because big corporations can go to a conference or go to a trade show for 7 days and spend a lot less money than it takes to put a salesman or a salesperson on the road traveling the year round. So a lot of traveling people don't sell anymore, going from house to house, town to town, like they used to. It's now the trade show, the conference type things that come together, that are being utilized. Of course, the next thing that's coming on is the teleconferencing, which also is not terribly cheap. And of course, you don't have the congeniality of a few hundred people with you. You're sitting maybe at home with your TV, listening to the various lectures or whatever you want to do. That's another thing that's coming on. And then the internet, of course, is coming on strong too. All of our tapes are supposed to be, and this, of course, you can make a better deal here by far, but they're going to be offered on the internet as well to reach an audience that is not here. And they will, that's another reason or session, a marketing session, a marketing a project that people are using nowadays. And of course it may change the whole picture very, very quickly. It's changed it in the book business. If you're not aware, the small book distributors are having a very difficult time now. There's big corporations that are merging, that's one thing. And then the other thing, you've got the bookstores, Amazon.com, which is on the internet, selling books by the gazillion, I guess it is, and it's making it very difficult. You're going to see probably a lot of smaller book dealers go out of business as this change makes its way. So a lot of people have asked, what's the problem with Florida next year? Is it Y2K? And that is a factor, because nobody has yet been able to explain or guarantee to us what is not going to happen or what is going to happen. And you've got experts all over the place, supposedly, and they don't agree. So it is a little chancy to try to run a conference and say shortly after the first of the year when everything might go to pot, and you'd have to cancel the whole thing, and if you've already paid for your airplane tickets and all that stuff. And we try to get our airplane tickets for our speakers paid for several months in advance, because we can get a better deal. You wait for the sales or to go on and the discounts and that sort of thing. And then if you've got those are non-refundable, so that's it. That's down the drain. So those are some of the factors that are involved as to why Florida might be skipped next year. If anybody has a suggestion of another place, San Antonio, maybe never Las Vegas. I would never go to Las Vegas. Las Vegas has all kinds of distractions. I think it's the worst place in the world for a group like this. Pardon? The Bahamas, if the people can afford it. Right off, you got a lead pipe soon. Another one in Denver, huh? That's a possibility. A lot of the weather is better here in the spring than most people, if they haven't lived here, ever dream. Of course, you can have a blinding snowstorm, a whiteout snowstorm on Sunday, and you can still be, and a blizzard and everything else. You can still be playing golf here on Thursday. But it is a chancy thing when it's March and April, or even February. February might even be better. There are possibilities, but it might be, this is a thing. If you have suggestions, now over the years, I've had a lot of people tell me, why don't you come to Atlanta? Why don't you come to Richmond? Why don't you come to Chicago? I say, okay, here's my criteria, and I want so many 1,000 square feet. This is about 9,000 square feet in here that we're crammed into, and a very good sleeping room rate for our people who come. So far, and all the people have said, I'll go find you something. I'll find you something in Louisville, or I'll find you something in another town. They never have. They never come back with a hotel with these facilities for these prices. We had a conference in Tampa 2 years ago, and our room rate overnight was $60. The